I never used to think much about death. In my younger years, it felt like something far away, distant, quiet, and not quite real. But then the years went by. I turned 60, then 65. Friends began passing, some quickly, some slowly. I attended more funerals than birthday parties. And somewhere along the way, death became less of an idea and more of a shadow, one that followed me, silently, from room to room. I never told anyone how often I thought about it, about the end, about what it means to stop being here, about whether I had done enough, said enough, loved enough. It was not fear in the loud screaming sense. It was quieter than that, like a whisper I could never quite silence. But one day, without expecting it, I heard something, just a sentence, a few simple words, and everything inside me began to shift. So let me ask you, when was the last time you thought about death? And more importantly, when was the last time you truly thought about what it means to live? Living in the shadow of fear. I did not wake up one day suddenly afraid of death. No, it came slowly, like the way autumn slips into winter, quiet, gradual. One day you are raking leaves under golden sunlight, and the next, everything feels a little colder, a little quieter. At first, it was just a passing thought. I would sit at the breakfast table and wonder how many mornings like this I had left. I would hear about someone from my generation who had passed away, and I would feel that odd chill in my spine. But I shook it off. I kept myself busy, cleaning the garage, paying bills, watching television, smiling at the grandchildren, laughing when I was supposed to laugh. But inside, a quiet worry began to grow. It was not panic. It was not drama. It was the kind of fear that hums beneath the surface, a question I never asked out loud. How much time do I have left? And beneath that question, another one I was even more afraid of. Have I truly lived? I started noticing things, the quiet ticking of the clock, how long it took me to get out of bed, how I now paused at the top of the stairs. I began to feel like everything was slipping away, my strength, my independence, my place in this world. I used to feel needed. Now I often felt invisible. I smiled for everyone else, but I carried a kind of loneliness that no one could see. You see, aging is not just about the body changing. It is about how the world treats you differently. People stop asking for your opinion. They assume you do not understand. And slowly, you start believing them. You shrink. Not in size, but in voice, in presence, in purpose. And as I felt smaller, the fear felt bigger. I was not just afraid of dying. I was afraid of becoming irrelevant, of being forgotten, of not having made enough of a mark on this world to matter once I was gone. So I kept quiet. I thought maybe if I did not say it out loud, it would go away. I did not want to worry my kids. I did not want to burden my friends. And truthfully, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed to admit that someone my age, who had lived through wars, loss, love, and everything in between, could still be afraid like a child in the dark. But I was, and I know I am not the only one. Maybe you have felt it too. That heaviness in your chest when you lie awake at night? That silence that follows you through the house when no one else is home? That unspoken sadness when you realize the next holiday might not look the same. No one tells us how to die. They tell us how to save for retirement, how to take care of our health, how to keep our minds sharp. But no one tells us how to make peace with the idea that one day all of this, everything we know and loved, will come to an end. And so we pretend we are fine. We avoid the topic. We call it natural or part of life, like that makes it easier. But deep down, we carry it with us, like a secret weight. And that was where I lived for a long time, in that space between pretending I was fine and quietly fearing that I was not, until the day I heard something that changed everything, the moment that shifted everything, what I heard that day. It was an ordinary day. There was nothing special about it. The sky was overcast. I had gone for a short walk just to clear my head. I was not trying to find answers or escape anything. I was simply moving my feet because sitting still had begun to feel heavier than walking. I ended up at the park. There's a bench I like right under an old oak tree. I sat there watching the leaves fall in slow, silent spirals. Around me, the world moved as usual. A mother pushed her stroller. A man jogged by with headphones in. The wind was gentle, but it carried the smell of earth and something older, something familiar. And then I heard it. Two people were talking on the bench behind me. I could not see them, and I was not trying to listen. But sometimes the right words come whether you are seeking them or not. One of them said with a voice that was calm and certain, "Death is not the end. It is just the punctuation. What matters is how you write the sentence." That was it. Just that. A simple sentence, but something about it pierced through me. I sat there frozen. I felt as if someone had just opened a window in a room I did not even realize had grown dark. Up until that moment, I had been thinking of death as a wall, a hard, cold wall at the end of the road. Something final, something to fear. But that one sentence, "Death is not the end. It is just the punctuation," shifted everything. Because punctuation is not about stopping. It is about giving meaning. A period closes a sentence so that it can be understood. A comma gives pause. A question mark invites reflection. And suddenly, I was not thinking about endings anymore. I was thinking about everything that comes before that final mark. I asked myself, if my life is a sentence, what kind of sentence am I writing? That question shook me more than any fear ever did. Not because it was scary, but because it was honest. All those days I spent worrying about the end, I was not living. I was editing, erasing, holding back. And now, sitting on that bench, I realized I still had words left. Maybe not as many as before. Maybe not a whole chapter, but enough. Enough to love deeper, to forgive more freely, to speak softer, to laugh louder. That one sentence I overheard, spoken by a stranger, reminded me of something I had forgotten. We do not get to choose the length of our sentence, but we do get to choose the meaning of every word we write. And just like that, the fear that had followed me like a shadow began to fade. The simple truth that changed everything. I walked home slowly that day, as if each step carried more meaning than the one before it. Something inside me had shifted, but it was not dramatic. It was not like lightning or thunder. It was quiet, like the way morning light creeps into a dark room, soft but impossible to ignore. That simple sentence I had overheard in the park stayed with me. Death is not the end. It is just the punctuation. The more I sat with those words, the more they began to open up something inside me. For years, I had treated death like a thief, something cruel that came to take everything away. But now I began to see it differently. Death is not the enemy. It is the reminder that life is fragile, precious, fleeting. And because of that, it matters. That is the simple truth. That is what changed me. Death does not steal meaning from life. It gives meaning to it. If we lived forever, nothing would feel urgent. Nothing would feel rare. A sunset would just be another sky. A hug would just be a gesture. A moment would just be time passing. But we do not live forever. We live one moment at a time. And because each one is limited, each one becomes sacred. That is what death teaches us, if we are willing to listen. It teaches us that what makes life beautiful is not its permanence, but its passing. The fact that we do not get to stay here forever is exactly what makes now so precious. I had been afraid of death because I thought it meant loss, the loss of people, the loss of memories, the loss of self. But now I began to see something else. I began to see that every moment I had lived was still mine. Every laugh, every tear, every story I had told or heard or held close in my heart, none of it was lost. It was all part of the sentence I was writing. A sentence that still had room left. The simple truth I discovered is this: the fear of death shrinks when we start truly living. And living does not mean being busy. It does not mean going places or doing big things. It means being awake to what is here, right now. The taste of your morning coffee, the sound of your grandson's voice, the breeze through the window as you sit in your favorite chair. I had spent so much time looking ahead with dread that I forgot to look around with wonder. But now, I try to live each day not as something to get through, but as something to be present for, something to savor. The truth is, we are all writing our sentence. No matter how long or short, we all have a choice about what we put into it, what tone it carries, what meaning it holds, what love it leaves behind. And when the punctuation finally comes, I hope it finds me not afraid, but grateful. Grateful that I was given the chance to live, even if just for a while, the small changes that transformed my life. After that day in the park, nothing around me changed. The world was still the same. My house still creaked in the mornings. My knees still ached when I got out of bed. The news was still heavy. The phone still rang less often than I would like. But somehow, everything inside me began to feel different. I did not have some grand plan. I did not wake up and declare a new life. No, it started small. So small, in fact, I almost did not notice it myself. I began by paying attention. I sat at my kitchen table one morning, holding a warm cup of coffee. And instead of letting my mind wander to all the things I could not control, my age, my health, the past, I just sat with that moment. The warmth in my hands, the silence of the house, the way the light hit the floor, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. I felt present, not distracted, not worried, not preparing for what might come, just present. That was the first change. Then came the others. I started calling people just to hear their voice, not for news, not for updates, just to say, I was thinking about you. The conversations were short, but they were real, and they made me feel more alive than any headline ever could. I began taking slower walks, not for exercise, not for steps on a fitness app, but to notice the way the wind moved the leaves, the laughter of children, the way the clouds changed shape without asking anyone's permission. I wrote letters, not long ones, just simple notes to people I loved, telling them exactly that. I love you. I always have. Sometimes I cried while writing, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release. I forgave more. That was not easy. There were people who had hurt me, and there were people I had hurt. But I realized something. If death is the punctuation, then forgiveness is the full breath before it. I did not want to carry anger to the end of my sentence. I started saying thank you more often, not just to others, but to life itself. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this memory. Thank you for letting me still be here. And slowly, the fear I had carried, the one that lived deep in my chest, began to loosen. Because every time I chose presence over panic, connection over isolation, gratitude over regret, I was rewriting the sentence of my life. I was no longer just counting the days. I was living them. And let me tell you, there is a quiet kind of joy that comes when you stop measuring time in years and start measuring it in moments. I did not become a different person. I did not move to a new city or chase something big. I simply let go of the idea that my life was almost over and embraced the truth that, until it ends, it is still mine to live. Facing loss, learning to let go and be grateful. Loss is something we all carry. Some of us carry it loudly with photos on walls, names etched in stone, stories told over and over. Others carry it silently, in the way we pause before mentioning someone's name, or how we avoid walking past their favorite chair. For me, loss became a quiet companion, not always present, but never far. I have lost people I loved more than words could ever describe. My best friend from childhood, my brother, my wife. Each one left a different kind of emptiness, and for a while, I tried to fill those empty spaces with distractions, chores, television, noise. But grief is patient. It waits, and eventually I had to sit with it. I used to think grief was something you got over. That time would smooth it down like water over stone. But now I understand something else. Grief does not leave. It changes shape. It becomes part of who we are. Some mornings, I would reach for 2 coffee cups before remembering there was only me now. I would laugh at something and instinctively turn to share it, only to find no one beside me. Those moments would steal my breath for a second. They still do sometimes. But here is the truth I learned. Grief is not only about sorrow. It is also about love, deep love. Love that was so real, it carved a space into your life. And when that person is gone, that space remains. So I stopped trying to erase the pain. I began to let it live next to the gratitude because I realized I would rather feel the pain of having lost someone than feel nothing at all. That pain meant I had loved deeply, that I had lived something real. I started saying their names again, out loud. At first, it hurt, but then it healed. I began telling their stories, sharing their quirks, laughing at their jokes, remembering their voices. And something beautiful happened. They came back, not in the way I wanted, not in the physical sense, but in spirit, in memory, in the way I now hug longer, listen more closely, say I love you more freely. They are part of the way I live now. One day I stood at my wife's favorite spot in the garden. It was quiet. The breeze moved gently through the flowers she once planted. I closed my eyes and said, "Thank you." Not goodbye. Just thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the love. Thank you for being part of my sentence. You see, letting go does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the tight grip of pain so that something softer can take its place. Peace, maybe, or understanding, or simply the ability to breathe again without guilt. Loss will never stop hurting completely, but it no longer controls me. It walks beside me, but it does not lead. And as I continue writing my sentence, I carry those I have lost not as wounds, but as words, as moments, as meaning, a message for anyone still afraid. If you are watching this and you are still afraid of dying, of disappearing, of being forgotten, I want to speak to you directly, heart to heart. You are not alone. Even if no one around you talks about it, even if your family brushes it off or changes the subject when you bring it up, I promise you, many others feel the same. I felt the same. For a long time, I carried the fear quietly, unsure of how to face it, or if I even should. It is okay to be afraid. It does not mean you are weak. It means you are aware of how fragile this life really is. And that awareness is not a curse. It is a gift. It means your heart is still open. It means you still care. It means you still love. But here is what I have learned. Fear grows in silence. It feeds on avoidance. The more we try to outrun it, the more it chases us. So I stopped running. Instead, I sat with it. I looked it in the eye. And when I did, I realized that the fear of death was not just about the end. It was about all the things I had left unsaid, all the days I had rushed through, all the parts of myself I had held back. When I faced that, something softened, because the fear was not telling me I was finished. It was asking me, gently, urgently, Have you lived fully? And if your answer right now is no, that is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be aware of, because you still have time. You still have breath. You still have this day. You do not need to wait for a perfect moment. You do not need to go skydiving or write a novel or change the world. Sometimes, living fully just means being truly present with someone you love. Holding their hand and meaning it, saying thank you and really feeling it, forgiving yourself and letting that be enough. You may not be able to add more years to your life, but you can add more life to your years. Maybe your body has slowed down. Maybe your voice is not as strong. But your soul, your story, your presence, they still matter. You still matter. And if you worry about being forgotten, let me offer you this truth. The love you have given, the kindness you have shown, the small ways you have touched others, they ripple on far beyond what you can see. None of us know how much time we have left, but we do know that we have now. So, take today gently. Walk slowly. Speak honestly. Love fully. And when fear visits, as it sometimes will, invite it to sit beside you. Offer it a seat at the table, but do not let it drive. Because you, my friend, are still here, and while you are here, you still have more to write,